Hi there, I'm Will Billingsley, one of the three co-founders of ApTap, where essentially we're trying to make bill management as easy as possible. Today I'm going to be speaking about the true value of open banking, but really how it evolves beyond what it is now and beyond financial services as a whole. Really what that entails is a quick, everyone's an expert here, so a quick overview of what is open banking, what is open finance, a little bit on ApTap, and then how we at ApTap see kind of open data evolving beyond finance, including things around consumer power, better targeting for suppliers, these financial super apps, and kind of where does the world go after that. So let's kick off. Open banking. I'm sure everybody's familiar here. We're at a finance conference after all. So quickly, open banking has allowed customers to open up their transactions and their payments to third parties like ApTap to essentially, increase competition in the marketplace. And that's what was stipulated by the CMA and the FCA early on. And we're now starting to see, I think, that come to fruition. The early stages of open banking, I think there was a lot of pushback with regards to financial institutions not really seeing the value in it for them. And so, how are we going to tackle that as a wider society, but as a startup on quite an individual level? And I think really, we need to start to drive that value for these financial institutions to get behind it, to really show a use case. And then it's an evolution, right, into kind of what is open finance. So open finance is taking it, a step further to almost encapsulate your entire financial footprint. And we're talking about gaining access to, a wider range of financial products or services like your mortgage, like your credit, and then trying to help people improve or trying to help people find the best services for them, or give them greater control over their finances, but then ultimately their data. And it's, how do we get individuals to engage with their finances, with their financial decisions that they need to make? How do we make that more digestible for an individual? And I think that's largely what we're trying to do at ApTap, with a specific focus on bill management. But there are plenty of incredible companies, I'm sure, at this conference and beyond, focusing on how we can tackle those issues within financial services, mortgages, savings, pensions, insurance, consumer credit, and so on, are all really pressing matters with some really interesting stuff happening in space. But for me, true value of open banking is it's about consumers. So how do we get to a point where we've been able to give a customer full clarity, understand what's happening in my little ecosystem of bank accounts, bills, subscriptions, mortgages, credits, payments, and give them that peace of mind where they understand, okay, here's where I'm at, here's what's going on in the industry or in my marketplace, and here are the actions, here are the insights, or here are the actions I can take off the back of these insights, right? And it's about that data. So the what's next, the then question mark here is about where do we go from here? Okay, we're starting to see that value of open banking in terms of much richer data sets and the likes of the TrueLayers, the Tinks, the Plaids, all out there providing services on both sides. At ApTap, we use TrueLayer to access our customers' financial statements, as much as the HSBCs of the world are working with the likes of Bud to improve how they can approach customers at the right financial kind of life stage for them. And then it's, as I've mentioned, into open finance, and then what? So that's kind of the crux of what I wanted to chat about today. So let's break it down. We'll start with the consumer, which I think for me and for the team at ApTap is the most important at the end of the day. That's the everyday person who needs to get to grips with what's happening with their data. And I think we'll start to see a few things. when I talk about opening up data, I'm going to give you a quick kind of what is ApTap. Essentially, what we're trying to do is understand who you are based on your financial statement. And that's things like, have you canceled subscriptions before? Have you switched on your energy or broadband bills before? How have those trends changed over time? Are you more of a green-minded person? Are you a gamer who'd be after some faster broadband? And so we can pull all these insights together and say, okay, here is this user profile, but what can we add to that? And what we're trying to do is start to emulate what we've seen in open banking and now what's happening in open finance, but across these non-financial products, across utilities, across telecoms, and of course in the insurance space and so on. And really start to open up those data points for customers to get a better understanding of kind of who they are as a user, but also, of course, for us and their banks and their service providers. So the way we see it is we're essentially trying to connect a user with their supplier using open data and housing that interaction within their banking app or the place where they manage their money. And I think then it's about driving a few things here. So first one for us is an improved user interface with regards to how, where, and when customers can interact with their suppliers. That's about, okay, I've just clicked switch, right, on the ApTap product. I'm going to be plugging us constantly throughout this. ApTap's told me, here's the greenest deal for you. I've clicked switch, but then what happens, right? I'm sent off to, ApTap will confirm that, but then an email comes from my supplier. They tell me certain details. I've got to send back a meter reading. I've then got to set up an appointment perhaps for someone to come and check that, or if it's broadband, to come and lay down a new cable. Why is that being pulled out of the initial user experience? Why isn't that embedded into somewhere where a customer is already managing their money? Why is it that a customer, when they need to dispute a charge, a payment that's happening in their bank account, why do they then have to go off to a different environment? And for us, they shouldn't have to. That should all be housed in a place where a supplier can say, hey, actually, we know that you're a freelancer and you're only getting paid every 2-3 months. And instead, why don't you, put down the money you can pay for a certain period of time, and we'll figure out those payments as we move forward, which is, of course, where open banking's variable recurring payments will come through. This is where things like request to pay will shine through. Next point, in terms of kind of empowering the consumer, it's about more transparent deals on services. So through utility, savings and investments products, and growing into, the mobile industry, into groceries transport, into, anything really. The subscription model is blowing up at the moment. And, how do we make that as open as possible for a customer to understand how I'm going to be paying, when and where I'm going to be paying, and then how do I interact with that service afterwards? How do I know that I've gone over my gigabyte allowance? Why is that coming through in a text? Why isn't that, Vodafone pinging me through my, my bill management platform and saying, hey, actually, you're constantly going 3 gigabytes over your 10 gigabyte plan. Why don't you change to the 15 gigabyte one? It will save you money. And at the same time, we've kept the customer. So then we start to talk a little bit about the supplier side and how we can increase competition in that side. A supplier who understands the customer the most is going to be able to provide a better user experience. And I think we've seen that with the way kind of things like auto switching have been picked up, is because it's a really easy user experience, and it's because the supplier or the intermediary in this case, in Look After My Bills, for example, would know who you are and can take care of that for you. If a supplier can understand those things, they're able to get in at the right time. They're able to support you when times are hard, and understand that, hey, you're going to you will be paid and you will pay that bill, and we can reward you for putting payments down on time. Let's get rid of these loyalty premiums. Another step, for the sake of not blathering on too long about competitiveness yet, because we will get into suppliers, to continue empowering customers, I think then it's about making this a more social experience. So right now, we believe people's individual finances are very individual. How do we make that, a more sociable experience in terms of not just splitting bills, but in terms of rewarding people for referring and creating buying power together by coming together as a group and subscribing to certain things together. I think we've always had a dream at ApTap to essentially have like a group Netflix subscription, because nobody actually has their own Netflix account. And we're starting to see those things when we look at like Pinduoduo or Venmo, for example. We can see the power of social, collaboration when it comes to managing money, Splitwise, right, has taken off and all over the world, and there's very little functionality, but that's how engaging these sorts of tools can be. And this is how we start to open up open data, as well as when I'm starting to share, I've actually used this much energy. People are on Nike running apps now saying, I'm running a 6-minute mile. Where are you at? Or how many miles do you do this week? Why isn't that, can that be a thing in the utility space, in the telco space? And then I think we'll start to see higher expectations from consumers off the back of all of this. And that's from their banks, that's from their service providers. And then in turn, we are going to see the quality of these services improve. So I think, we need to show a use case. We need to take this to regulators and turn around and say, hey, this works. We're proving this with open banking. We're starting to see it seep out into open finance. Let's look at how we open up utilities. Let's look at how we open up telecoms and start to really put the consumer in the driver's seat here, because the quality of services in turn is going to increase. And then it's about these, suppliers, these banks tapping into revenue streams. So let's talk suppliers a little bit. I think the baseline thing for suppliers is about targeting. How do they get in front of customers? How do they do that in a way that is, succinct and timely and really works for their user, but is also not really, not super creepy. I think I've talked to enough people about our ideas at ApTap to understand that there are certain people who just say, whoa, that's too much for me, or, you're giving away too much of my data. And it's obviously, we understand those concerns. But when we're talking about a better user experience with more buying power and, more competitive marketplace with better deals, I think those concerns start to alleviate. So yes, it's taking a while for consumers to get used to data being shared in this way, but targeted ads reduce wastage, and they help customers get products and services at the right time. And at the end of the day, streamline their lives. And if I can tell you, well, actually this service isn't right for you because X, Y, and Z, or I've got, you keep overrunning on your mobile, to take the example earlier, or you keep going under on your mobile data allowance. Why can't I, as ApTap, or my financial institution, we're working with TSB Bank at the moment, why can't they say to you, hey, we've actually noticed you're only using 5 gigabytes of your 10 gigabyte allowance, and in fact you could save £10 a month on your phone deal, and then what can you do with those £10? We start to look at the kind of value proposition on the other side. So for these financial institutions who will be doing this for their customers, for these budgeting tools, but also for the suppliers. For suppliers, it's targeted approach to a customer at the right time in the place where they're already making those financial decisions. I'm opening up my banking app and I'm thinking, whoa, I'm spending far too much on X service. Let's not name any names. Why can't I switch right there and then? Why can't I understand what my usage looks like and how that's going to translate into a different offer from a different supplier? And this, again, is about empowering those consumers, but then a supplier can turn around and say, well, actually, you know what, we're seeing this trend across 10,000, 100,000 people, and we can slide a deal in that works. And so this is about true value. And now it's not just, oh, it's good for consumer. It's, I'm able to turn around to a supplier and say, here's the best way in which you can optimize your products. And at the same time, when you're acquiring that customer and you're giving ApTap an affiliate fee for that, we're going to be splitting that with our partners who we use, who we work with to distribute our products, the likes of the TSB banks and some other partners of ours. And I think this is what we'll move into super apps now. This is what we're starting to see with the Revoluts, the Tencents, and even the likes of someone like Emma, right? And I think remiss not to mention these guys, because they're in a position where they are tackling open finance. I think a lot of early open banking champions are looking at investment products, at mortgages, as a way of bringing in millennials and as a way of driving that initial user acquisition. And it's an exciting thing to see. And we've even seen things like bill switching brought into Monzo. And Monzo, if you're listening, we can help you do that. But at the end of the day, it's about driving insights through data, and the likes of the Googles, the Facebooks. They've been doing that for years now. And can we start to do the same in a way that's a bit more transparent for customers? We've seen GDPR come through, and we can argue back and forth about how much that truly impacted the user experience beyond having to accept cookies on every single website. But what can we do to say to a customer, here are your data points, here's how it comes together in a user profile, here are the things that match your user profile, and here are the actions that you can take. And I think that's when it starts to get truly powerful, truly value driving for not just consumers, but then the institutions they bank with, or the tools they use to manage their bills with, or the suppliers that they use at the end of the day. And I think then it's identity, right? So we've talked about growth. What comes next then? It's is open data going to be growing with kind of the digital ID, the adoption of the digital ID? I think the purpose of my kind of talk today isn't really to give you any answers, as you've probably guessed by now, but it's to have it's an exploration into kind of where are we at and where are we going, and what questions do we need to be asking. The UK is one of the kind of frontier companies when it comes to fintech and open data and finance, but we're still a long way to being comfortable with a digital ID. And I think we've seen that in the likes of the COVID passports, right? But is this inevitable? Why am I still walking through borders with a paper passport? Why do I have a plastic ID card? And I think finance can be the frontier for these things. We've seen that with the likes of the Apple Wallet in and of itself, but also the likes of Curve, who are essentially digitizing your financial identity and bringing that all into one place. So what we're looking to do at ApTap is essentially replicate these points outside of open finance, but we know that we can use open banking, open finance as this use case and point to that and say, hey, actually, you know what? Here's a tool, here's a way of driving consumer power, here's a way of getting, improving the value proposition for suppliers, here's a way of empowering financial institutions, budgeting tools to do more for their customers while driving organic revenue from their customers. And at the end of the day, it's a wonderful user experience. So that's about it from me. I'm happy to chat to anyone who wants to reach out and talk a little bit more about open data, open banking, open finance, or even, what are we up to at ApTap? So, like I said at the beginning, we're here to help people manage their bills and subscriptions. We do that using data to understand who you are as a customer, whether that's through your transactions, through your energy usage, your broadband speeds, and so on. We're here to help you cancel, compare, switch, and sign up to those services from within the place a customer manages their money. So thank you for your time. Enjoy the rest of the conference and have a good one.